Good day, everyone. Here now is your friend from the Philippines, Professor Juliet Tero, from the Department of Professional Education, College of Education, Mindanao State University, Iligan Institute of Technology, Philippines. I am now presenting my paper entitled The Effects of Social Media on the Reading Habits Across Generations in Iligan City. It has been said that reading is the avenue to all learning. Early years, printing presses were publishing books, magazines, journals, and newspapers where people get information or entertain themselves, thus developing a reading lifestyle. However, at the onset of global information age, we will now determine what could be the effects. For example, one tool here is the social media on such reading habits across generations in our city, in Iligan, Philippines. This is the theoretical framework of the study, the theory of cultural determinism, DAIA 2014. So this delves on the ideas, meanings, beliefs, and values where people learn as members of society. This generally speaks that this determines the human nature. And as generation groups, reading habits are practiced, this is in relation to the use of social media at the same time. Another theory is the social presence theory, the STP. In linguistic anthropology, cultural resource or the act of reading and speaking is collectively a human language faculty, producing cognitive and social achievements. Individuals communicate virtually, if not done face-to-face, FTF. One of these tools is the social media, whereby although one individual is physically absent, it seems that such individual is present. So that is what we call virtual presence. This is the conceptual framework of the study. So we have the social media in this time of information age, and what could be the effects of this on the reading habits across generations in Iligan City. The research methodology involves purposive sampling, as this is a qualitative research. And the snowballing approach was employed. There were 20 participants selected. They were called the 20 Ps. And the questionnaires were retrieved face-to-face, only 4 of them, unfortunately, because COVID-19 started to spread and people were made to stay home and face-to-face interviews were no longer allowed. So cell phone text messages were utilized in gathering the rest of the data, in addition to the 4 Ps. And then we have the Facebook Messenger, where the researcher and the respondents or participants were communicating. During the COVID-19, the online respondents or responses were utilized. That was during March to May 2020. Another is the discourse analysis used in the study. It explored the meaning produced by language use and communication for meaning-making processes. Of course, the participants below 18 years of age were supervised by the parents and the guardians, because this is in accordance to research ethics, and they were assigned codes. For example, participant 1 is called P1, and P2, P3, and so on. By consent, the study was made. Parents and guardians were there to guide those below 18 years of age. And we have the findings of the study. In the silent generation, they are those with ages 82, 79, 77, and 76. They were called the P1, P2, P3, and P4. Their birth year bracket is from the year 1925 to 1945. They said that they still read the printed material, and this is the Bible, but at the same time, they have also learned to use the social media. We have also the baby boomers, or the baby boomers generation. They were called the P5 and the P6. They were born between the years 1946 to 1964. It was easy for them to get information from the social media for their global perspectives. So they were active social media users. So not much on the printed reading materials anymore. The Generation X, or the baby bust, born in 1965 to 1979, they said that they still read printed materials, but not so often, because most of the time, they also used social media for information and, of course, socialization. So they were the P7, 8, 9, and 10. For the Zennials, those born in 1980 to 1985, they were called the P11 and 12. They still read printed materials, although it was not their hobby, but for academic purposes, and for those who are working, yes, they read printed materials, and they also read the Bible. But they said that not much on the printed materials anymore, because the cell phones were so easy to use this time to access the social media. So the weight of social media was heavier among the Zennials. For the Millennials, or the Generation Y, those born in 1986 to 1994, social media news and articles became an integrative part of their reading habits. So they were the P13, 14, and 15. Although not much reading materials were read, except for that book called Purpose-Driven Life, according to one participant, because she really liked the book. For the iGen, or the Gen Z generation, born in 1995 to 2012, they did not read much from printed materials anymore. But they were so on and on using the social media because, according to them, it was so attractive. And one of them even said that social media is very addictive. So they were called the P16, 17, and 18. For the last generation, Generation Alpha, those born in 2013, and for those who are yet to be born 2025. And we have only 2 participants, grade 1 pupils, so ages 7 years old. So they said that social media helped them in language improvement. Yes, they are watching YouTube. They like cartoons very much. And they learned English and Tagalog languages from these YouTube materials. And they said that they have developed language and imitating skills by prolonged exposure to technology. Indeed, the way they talk are very much the YouTube materials that they have been watching. So they were called the P19 and the P20, the last of the participants and the youngest of them all. We have our conclusions here. It could be concluded that all generations' reading habits were affected by social media. To what extent? To a great extent. Now, the reading habits of these generations shifted from the printed materials to the internet. Much more even now during COVID-19, where almost all activities are done or were done online at the conduct of the study. We have these recommendations to make in this study. The future researchers may increase the scope of this study with more number of participants. And of course, we have to focus on, or the future researchers have to focus on, how social media utilization would affect reading habits across generations, most especially these times during the COVID-19 pandemic times or after this pandemic would soon end. Another recommendation is for the English Department of the College of Arts and Social Sciences through the PhD students enrolled in educational technology to produce research outputs with focus on instructional materials which could be responsive to the need for open distance learning which people are using nowadays. And it needs to be creating a reading culture. Yes, there has to be a reading culture to be created both in printed materials and in digital materials as well. The MHOIT administration has to consider teachers' training. So this would be the last recommendation. This university, being a research university, has to consider the development of a reading culture. Yes, by enhancing the reading habits among constituents, among the faculty, the staff, the students, and the stakeholders. It would be done by setting up a reading center in the campus. That is, if the face-to-face learning would soon return. That would be all for this study. Maraming salamat po. Thank you very much. Mabuhay kayong lahat with all our love and prayers from the Philippines.